This is Duke University.
If I had to think it at a global level, there's two really key trends that have been occurring over the last several years. One of those is a shift in the locus of energy demand growth from advanced industrialized countries like the United States to Asia, emerging economies like China, India, also in the Middle East. We face about a 30 to 50% increase in energy demand over the next generation, 20 to 25 years. Almost all of that is going to occur outside of advanced industrialized countries in places like China and India. So the locus of energy demand and also the locus of energy trade is shifting toward the east. So as we think about oil flows from the Middle East, they're now going away from North America, now toward China and India. So that's the demand side of the global dynamic. Then there's the supply side, which I've already alluded to a little bit, which is the amazing change in oil and gas supply, particularly in North America and in the United States in particular. The shale gas revolution, which is something that really caught almost everybody by surprise, really didn't take off until the late 2000s. But we've gone from having really no of our natural gas coming from shale gas to about 50% of it coming from shale gas. Then over the last several years, we've seen the attention not shift, but in addition to that, go from gas to oil. And so now we have tight oil, or sometimes called shale oil. This has led to a dramatic change in the supply outlook for the United States, particularly on oil and gas. It's also led to significant shifts in electricity production, a shift from coal to natural gas. It's led to a shift in international trade patterns. It's also recently led to very significant shifts, first in gas prices, but now into global oil prices. So those would be two really key dynamics, a shift in the locus of energy demand growth and a change in the supply picture, particularly for North America, that have really changed the energy landscape over the last several years. Looking forward, a key issue that's going to be confronted, and particularly on the policy front, is global climate change. And how countries, how the international community addresses global climate change could have very significant impacts on the energy system. And that ranges from how fast demand will grow, because most of our energy at this point comes from fossil fuels, over 80%, and so one way of addressing those emissions is by simply reducing demand growth. So will the demand growth internationally, will it be 50% over the next 25 years, or will it be 30% over the next 25 years? It'll be big nonetheless, but that is a very significant difference. Also, how we continue to use fossil fuels could change significantly over time, depending upon the degree of attention that's placed on global climate change. Whether we start to include carbon capture and storage on coal, on gas, on oil is one question, where you capture the carbon and then sequester it underground. The degree of shift from coal as a source of electricity production toward natural gas and toward renewables or nuclear power is also a critical issue. That will depend heavily, I think, on the degree to which we address global climate change. So those are some of the key shifts that are occurring. When I get excited about energy technology, I think about it from this point of view of how can we have advances in energy technology that work not just from a technological point of view, but also work within the policy and the market context that we have in our energy system. We often see great new ideas in energy, but they don't succeed. They don't succeed sometimes because they're not cheap enough to face the competition. They don't succeed because they really don't work with the financing arrangements that we currently have in the energy sector. Some of the areas that have the most potential for very significant game-changing effects on the energy system, one would be energy storage, particularly in electricity. Because electricity has to balance in real time the supply side and the demand side, because we don't have inexpensive storage now, if we had inexpensive storage, it would really alter the dynamics of the electricity market and regulatory system. That's one area. Another area which is related and increases the demand for storage is solar energy. Solar energy has come down in cost very significantly over the last several years. It's becoming more competitive, but is still a relatively expensive source of electricity in most parts of the country and the planet. But if solar was to come down more significantly than it has, it really could have very, very significant effects on the opportunity for a zero-emission energy source for electricity. On the fossil fuel side, one of the areas that still has, I think, significant potential is carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture and storage is where you take the carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuels and you capture them rather than emitting into the atmosphere and causing global climate change. And so if we're going to be continuing to use fossil fuels, which most of us think we will be for many decades to come, if we want to do that at the same time that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, carbon capture and storage is a very important approach to be innovating on. Some of the really key policy developments occurring now in the United States are in the electricity sector. This summer, the electric sector will be looking to the EPA with a final rule related to greenhouse gas emissions called the Clean Power Plan. This will apply not only to new sources of electricity, but to existing sources of electricity production, and would lead over time to a significant reduction in the carbon dioxide emissions that come from electric power. The different mechanisms that could be used to do that range from energy efficiency to ramping up existing natural gas plants and substituting away from coal-based electricity production, to increasing renewable power for electricity production, and also to maintaining our existing nuclear fleet, possibly expanding the existing nuclear fleet. So there's a suite of options that have been included in proposed regulation from the Environmental Protection Agency. What that final rule looks like and what happens in terms of court challenges will be really important for the electricity sector over the next decade or more. There's some other key areas related to oil and gas production. There's been increased attention to methane emissions from natural gas and oil, and so now there is potential regulations from the Environmental Protection Agency on methane emissions from upstream gas infrastructure. There's also been, because of the renaissance in U.S. oil and gas production, particularly oil now, we're reaching the point where people are actually starting to talk about oil exports from the United States, where for a very long period of time we were seeing imports on an increase. We're now seeing imports significantly decline and get to the point where companies want to export certain types of crude oil from the United States. This is currently prohibited by law with some minor exceptions, and so a question will be whether or not the export ban on crude oil is relaxed over time.